Hello, listeners. We are your co-hosts, Janine Bailey and Marie Quigley, for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart, and soul. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. And today I'm not here with Marie, for those who can see the actual recorded interview. You can see that I'm with an amazing man called Alan Taylor today. And Alan, I really appreciate you being here. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me along. It's great to be here.
A pleasure, a great pleasure. And so, Alan, you and we met quite a few years ago. I believe it was during COVID times when we met on our OSC training. So that was quite a few years ago now.
It was about 4 or 5 years ago. It was quite a while.
Yes. And it was great fun. And I really appreciated meeting yourself and a few others on that course at that time. And of course, we've stayed in touch because we do have a connection in relation to our passion for looking after the climate, all things sustainability and taking care of our planet for future generations. So we've also collaborated on some work with the CCA, so the Climate Coaching Alliance, started by Josie, Eve, and Alison many years ago. So we certainly collaborated on that platform in Australia, holding that space for coaches interested in our part of the world. Also with that passion for sustainability, climate change, and so much more. So I wanted to bring you on today because I felt it's been some time since we looked in this podcast at how we can, through what we do as coaches, support and care for our planet, our beautiful planet, Mother Earth. And I know that you've been doing some great work in various different ways and shapes and forms. So I really wanted to bring your insights and wisdom here today, Alan. So over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for a very graceful introduction, Janine. So I'm basically I'm an executive coach, a leadership trainer, and basically team collaboration expert. I help support teams and leaders and departments in building collaboration and everything from innovation and how you can solve problems in new ways through to actually the actual delivery and consulting them and supporting them in how to actually deliver that effectively. I have a background in IT. I've been in IT for about 20 years, and a lot of that time has been as a consultant supporting change, transformations, and I've brought that now into the sustainability and general world because that's where we need to adapt for a more positive and sustainable future.
Yeah, I really appreciate your background and your experience, and certainly working in an area where it's perhaps, and I could be making a assumption here, Alan, in a world where it's much more about thinking, solution solving, problem solving, coming up with solutions. It's much more of a black and white world. So, and I really appreciate how you can see how coaching can support that field of work, support overcoming challenges, and really focusing on what's truly important. And I know that you've taken a step out of the corporate world to begin your own business as well. So, I'm really appreciating that passion, that determination and focus that you have to do that. So for our listeners, what do you believe is perhaps key to appreciate about how we can combine these skills of coaching in perhaps a world that is much more analytical, data, fact focused? What would you share with our listeners?
Ooh, that's such a brilliant topic to bring up because it's a conundrum that is very difficult to grasp. And I think we are, as you say, we're very much into this binary thinking. It's either right, wrong, it's this solution or that. This is the right thing and that's wrong. I think we, as coaches, need to help our clients cope more with ambiguity. We'd be able to understand that we don't know the right answer. And that's the same whether the problem is trying to convince a stakeholder or convince a team to be part of the solution. Sometimes I've got clients coming to me and, how do I help build communications around everybody accepting this change? Well, we're not all the same. And I can't give you the answer. I can just help you work it out for yourself in your environment. So I think it's handling that idea that there isn't an answer. It's being more conscious that it's okay to make a few little mistakes.
Mm. And I'm guessing that that is going to be potentially difficult for some of those audiences to take that on in a
A-
yeah. Go ahead.
Absolutely. It's a situation where they've got to where they are, especially with the more senior leaders. They've got to get in there by following, this is the process, this is what we do. And of course that can work. But as the world is changing and even our work environment, of course, more and more people are working from home. And we've got a different life. They all play a part in how we are struggling to make the right choices with an expectation that we've got all the right choices. So one of the things I try to bring as a coach is some of the mindset from the IT career that I've built a lot of my experience in. And that's an idea of test and learn. Be able to set new boundaries and go, well, okay, this is the problem we've got to solve. And if we try this, what will be the challenges? Okay, and what could go wrong? We often don't even explore what we could try because we think it's got to be right or wrong, which means we often overanalyze it, try to bring too many questions in. And so bringing in that idea of let's try this out. What can go wrong? What do we have to put in safety net around it to make it safe? And then through that, we actually got so many more levers that are created. And so helping leaders realize that we can actually create levers. This isn't a risk management tool. It becomes a risk. It allows risk to enable the change, bring people on the journey with us because, hey, you can help us with this now. And it is a strange one. So to your question, how do we help them adapt to that? Bring in the opportunities that we bring by actually saying, well, you can bring people along, you can get their buy-in, you can reduce the costs, and start small. Don't start small. It becomes too big a risk to even contemplate. So a small step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. So just really introducing the ability to make little errors, or maybe not, maybe successes, and just keep building on that, so that the perhaps the risk appetite grows. But as you say, yeah, what I'm hearing is that, but there's containment around that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because we think, well, if we make a small change here, can we do it with a small team? Can we do it with a small product that's being delivered? And where can we start? And that could also be at senior level. So, for example, one of my clients is working in the innovation space, is a senior leader, director level, and he's having trouble convincing his higher ups, oh, this is what we can do with this new product to make this work. And they're like, yeah, but what about in this? Or why can't you do this sort of solution sort of question? So sometimes it's even navigating the style of conversations that they're having in response to not push back and not be seen as pushback and actually open up some doors. So David, for him, it's very small risk in changing his narratives, but that will open him up to actually, when he's tried it, I'm looking forward to the next session with him. when he's tried that, it should have opened up that opportunity for him to see that adaptations can be really successful. And then, as you say, reduce the risk the next time because, oh, the last one worked. Maybe the next one will too. What can I do?
Yes, brilliant. And, when I'm hearing you reflect here, Alan, I'm hearing yes, but,
Mm-hmm.
and so yes, it's really supporting our clients to think differently. So yes versus yes, but yes, and what is possible? I also heard you use the word adaptation, and so that brings me back to the reason that I reached out to you to see um, or to ask you, invite you to bring in your wisdom about how we can support our clients to adapt to what is happening in the world in relation to climate change and sustainability. So, Alan, what can you share with our audience, which is a combination of coaches and also leaders who coach? And I know that there are some people who are just really interested in, who are not coaches, uh, interested in how we can support a better world. So, so maybe you could share what are some insights that you're starting to appreciate, as I know that you're focused in this area of supporting sustainability.
It's a great question because I think it comes down to motivation and why do we want to do something? And I feel that we are not looking enough at what the cause, what the purpose is for each of the members of the parties, who are the teams, who are the people we're trying to serve. And so who we're serving, but also who's delivering. For many years, there's been many books, articles, and things that some of you will have read, like Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And if you got that purpose, great. And a lot of the time it's read, but it's not actually embodied. It's not lived with, and we're not actually experiencing that. And what I've seen work so well is when we start to bring people's own lives into the journey. One of the exercises I love doing, which I actually learned through a group, you mentioned the CCA earlier, that I'm working with still, and you can just see it on my label, just be a map, a meaning, awareness, and purpose is the sort of framework that we've co-created. Because when people see their own meaning, what is it? What's important to me? And that could be, I want my family, the health. I like going walking. I like, whatever it is that we enjoy in life. When we start being aware of what is important to us, if we start thinking about, well, not just I like doing that, but why? Build awareness of the connection of that. That can give us a purpose in what we're doing. And this can then multiply with groups. So once you understand yourself and you understand where the rest of the group is, you've now got alignment in moving forward. Now that sounds to some people, oh yeah, it's very high level and I don't like the idea of doing that in a work environment. But if we bring that into our work and what we deliver, it can actually bring so much more passion and interest in actually delivering it. It's like, well, why? I care about the future and whatever. And the company objective is to reduce waste, reduce landfill. Okay. Now we've got an opportunity for a narrative. It's like, oh, I want a better future. I'm aware that too much landfill is going to be bad for the environment and bad for my children. So we bring in your own meaning, and each person's meaning is different. But by inviting them through those coaching conversations to bring their own meaning into that and bring their own connections to that, it can be a very significant motivation for wanting to make decisions themselves that support those adaptations, hopefully within the company remit, and help everyone win.
Yeah, it's so powerful, isn't it, when we work with teams to support them to understand their own personal why or the team's why as a combined unit. When we really hold the space for the participants to really appreciate why they are there, why they do what they do. And as you say, each person's why will be different, but yet somehow beautifully it connects. It connects people together, it draws them together and taps into an energy and an inspiration to be able to support the group to move forward in a collaborative way with greater appreciation, greater understanding. It's really tapping into humanity that really can enable a team to adapt and be able to create new outcomes.
Absolutely. And I love the word you used there when you used the inspiration. You called that out. And that's a motivator. That's like when you're inspired, you're motivated, you get higher productivity at the same time. So the value to everybody from the individual to the team to the organization, and obviously on the bigger level, the planet as being the ultimate objective, there's wins along that whole chain. It isn't a this or that.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so, Alan, I'm not sure if you can share an example without naming names, um, keeping confidentiality in place. It would be wonderful, I believe, certainly for me, being curious, to hear perhaps of an example of how you've been able to support a team that perhaps was sitting back in relation to looking at, how we can adapt um, and be more and incorporate sustainable practices from holding back to moving forward. I'm not sure if that's something you can do to highlight the work that you do.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. It's a wonderful question. I think the case studies is what we need, or appreciation of what has happened. It builds that reality to what it is. And with one group, we were fortunate that as working with a group from the senior leadership all the way down. And so there we got the idea of what does the organization want to do? What do the senior leaders at the organization do? Where do they align? And then working with individuals in the organization who weren't directly involved in sustainability work, but they wanted to build it it's in the built environment, collaborate in their ways of thinking, what else can we do? The power there was really amplified in many different ways. And certainly the fact that the senior leadership, the executives, had brought their own true selves into the picture and shared that collaborative, this is what we value, this is what we are trying to do, into the room with those participants in that team. Was really powerful because it set the precedent that, hey, this is true, this is really connecting. And then what we have found was the trust level at that point was raised. And because trust was raised and the flexibility was clearly believed to be there, because quite often, I don't know, in the audience, I'm sure there's many times where somebody says, oh yeah, you can go and do that, you've got this flexibility, but people either don't believe it or they don't feel comfortable. It's back to the safe environment. They don't feel comfortable making those changes. But because the executives had personally come into the room and said, hey, this is what we're doing, that trust was set, the credibility was set. And so then working with those people and bringing their own values into the room and then using other techniques that we applied, using a lot of functional imagery to help people imagine their future. It inspired them, back to that word, I love picking up on that one, is it inspired them to want to do something in whatever power or whatever capacity they had. And it was interesting as we watched this team, and there was actually a vertical team, so we had people at different levels from director down, and seeing them reflect over the weeks going through the program, the opening up of, oh yeah, I couldn't get that. I couldn't understand that document. This is a problem for me. And calling out, I couldn't understand the sustainability plan. I don't know, most people, I'm sure you've read a document and thinking, what the hell? I don't really get it. It's got all the details. It just doesn't make sense. I thought, well, why not? Why don't I just phone the chief sustainability officer, and having the inner self unlocked to be able to actually go and do those sorts of things was super powerful. And so there were initiatives being set up. One of the initiatives that was set up because of that team's passion and drive was that one of them said, well, why don't we just change our annual support day, or I forgot what they called it originally, but they called it a sustainability day, to give a clear purpose across the whole organization of what change was going to be happening. And seeing that sort of adaptation, the unlocking their own ability to make decisions and actually act and bring their own passions into it. It was wonderful to behold.
Fantastic, Alan. Congratulations on making that happen. And, what I'm hearing is that, and I truly believe that we do need the buy-in from the top to be able to really be able to be effective, because if the top are not buying into what's being brought into an organization to facilitate change, then it can disrupt the whole mechanism, if that's the right word. So brilliant that you had that awareness and were able to bring the senior team to come in and share what was important to them to build that trust. Because without that trust, as you say, people potentially won't move out of their comfort zone. They won't do things differently for fear of, and of course it's a broad assumption, generalization. Some will, but potentially many won't. So yeah, congratulations for supporting that to trickle down and be able to, as you say, unlock the potential or their own initiatives, desires, inspiration to create the change. So what are you noticing now with that group? What's different about that team?
The interest in doing that was not short-lived. Checked in on them. This is actually a year or so ago, but they're just such a great example, because we checked in about a year later. How are they doing? And that passion is still going. They're still doing I can't remember what they did, but there were still things that they were doing in their everyday work, their little side projects, little things that they were doing with the organization, and they continued. And I think that's where the value of the coaching mindset was very different than what we often use is training. And training is valuable, but it doesn't usually change the mindset. And here, through that training mechanism, the whole mindset, the ongoing drive was self-perpetuating.
Through the coaching initiative. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
versus training.
Yeah, that's right. Because the training just gives people the information, but actually not the motivation, the intent to actually action it. And the coaching had a very different multiplying effect, especially with the group. The power of the group supporting one another through that.
Yeah. It's one thing to know, isn't it? It's one thing to know and understand what to do differently and what's important, but it's another thing to actually take action or non-action if that's required. It's change is about awareness, but it's also about what follows up. And as you say, Alan, it's about the mindset. And if the mindset is not ready, is still trapped in the comfort zone of the old way, then what is known as the definition of madness, the same old things will be done.
Absolutely. Yep.
and no change made. So, Alan, for our listeners, what else would you like to share with them in relation to, what is it that we can be aware of or be mindful of or perhaps do that can continue to support to make, because you've shared it's about not the big, perhaps the big steps, which the big steps are important, but it's also the little steps that can be built upon that can actually perhaps create an avalanche of change. So, what is it that you would like to share with our audience that can support those continuous little improvements or big?
This is going to be very counterintuitive, and I don't know how easy it is to grasp, but it's the idea of not having a detailed plan. I think quite often we've got huge plans, and this is exactly what we're going to do, and these are the exact cons. And that might be perfect, but more often than not, it is designed on what somebody thinks and not what is seen. And the my recommendation is to have a rough roadmap of this is where we're going, but using that metaphor of a roadmap is go, well, okay, but if that road's closed, where will I go next? And be willing to look around and look for the signposts along the way, and be willing to look around and go, hey, that looks like that might be a really pretty place to go to. Let's try that. And give those things a go. So that's a reason why the small little pieces can be more powerful than they sound, because it allows you to adjust the journey to what is needed at the time. Listen to the sounds and explore what is actually ticking people's boxes and getting them excited, and allow it to evolve, but with obviously some gentle nudges and steering along the way.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, wonderful advice. That works well for me. Not being so much into the details, and but I believe that, and based on my own personal experiences back in the corporate world, working for large blue chip organizations, I could see how teams would get lost in the planning and the detailing and really wanting to get that information, which potentially often gets shelved, put aside because something more urgent and important has come up that we need to focus on. So that's a lot of time that can be wasted. Of course, I appreciate that planning to a degree is helpful, but not getting lost in it.
Absolutely. And I think following that corporate lens, if you look, then obviously change management is often considered, it's a good sister to or part or sibling to coaching, and obviously coaching can help along. I often look at it because that's around adaptation in theory, but quite often it becomes a big plan. And even for those of you who of the audience who are aware of ProSci, it's massive. It's one of the biggest change frameworks out there. And even on their own website, there's often articles talking about 70% of the change projects, not working. And that is because they followed the process and not looked at where the people are and being willing to be adapting. And so this is empirical evidence in the industry about where the challenges are if we become too rigid. And as the world's changing even faster, I think we have to be adaptable.
Yes, I think that's so key. And now that we are touching on this, it's bringing back memories of again being involved in so many projects that just took up so much time and effort that time and time again just got shelved. So it's looking at where our energy, looking at the best ways we can spend our energy and time to create what is desired. Um, so Alan, I am also keen to understand, because you're in I know your focus is very much in the field of sustainability. I just wanted to hear what's your feeling about the way that we are, particularly in Australia, and potentially you will have an appreciation of it more globally as well. How do you think we are moving towards being more understanding and aware of becoming more sustainable? What do you see as the trend?
We're definitely more aware. We are growing, but and so the trend is in the right direction. And at the moment, though, the feeling is still very much around regulations. And so, however valuable regulations can be a useful sort of stick rather than a carrot. And organizations are wanting that because they want a path to follow, they want clarity. The driver in most areas, there's some areas that are a little bit more positive than others, but generally speaking, it's more about what measurements do I need? What do I need to show that I've got the measurements? And there's not enough drive to actually make the change that is going with it. And so I think this is another area where coaching mindset will be wonderful, is to start changing that mindset from like, well, what do we need to tick the box, but what can we do to turn that to an advantage, to turn that to a corporate benefit. And so the trend at the moment, back to your question, trend at the moment is, what do we need to do? What do we have to do? That's reporting, and not enough emphasis on actually how do we put that in motion. Interestingly, though, on the positive note, there is so much work being done by some amazing startups in collaboration with obviously incubators and universities. There's so much technology, so much knowledge, so much skill in Australia around that it's just waiting to get the opportunity for corporates to go, hey, let's actually put this in place a bit more. So I would say we are in a place where we could accelerate quickly. We just need to find that switch to change the corporate mindset.
Mm. Yes, that is hopeful is the word that comes to mind. That there is all of this amazing, and I know there is all of this amazing talent, awareness, skill set, understanding, research that can, once the corporate world is really ready, really, really ready to turn on that switch, it can happen. It's not like, where do we begin? There's already tons of resources that are out there, knowledge, awareness out there to make it happen.
Yeah, I think you've reminded me there, another one of the things that corporates need to do is loosen up a little bit on the roles. Another one of the patterns that we're seeing, particularly here, is, we need the experts, we need the sustainability experts. And that's trying to buy this information in. And because Australia is so far behind the rest of the world, we've got very few of those experts here. And so that's sort of getting to the organizations, a lot of organizations, to this level of stagnation. Oh, the people aren't here, the skills aren't here, we haven't got the capabilities, so let's not do it. Rather than saying, well, let's just take those small steps. Let's get the people in the organization who are motivated and keen. Let's get them involved in it. And then we can build our own ship as we sail, rather than needing somebody else to provide a ready built one, which doesn't exist yet and we haven't got the tools. So let's learn as we go, I think, is a direction I would recommend more businesses to do.
Absolutely. And as we know and appreciate, coaching is about supporting people to unlock their capability, their wisdom, their inspiration, their desire to create change. And when there's a desire, human beings can be incredibly resourceful and incredibly creative and can do a whole lot of research and experimentation to make the change that is desired. So thank you, Alan. Thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom and your experience. I really appreciate what you've brought in today. And just checking in to see if there's anything else you'd like to share before, maybe a reflective question before we close out our podcast today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, what came to mind with a reflective question is what's stopping you? And follow on from that is like, what is the actual scale of that? And where I'll add a little bit of context. Quite often, for example, I'll take it out. I'll use a metaphor of wind farms. Oh, we can't have wind farms because it'll kill birds. Now, of course, that is horrible, and I'm not condoning that is what's happening, but we need to put it in perspective. I think it's about 500,000 birds die in Australia every year from hitting windows. Just glass windows that we all have in our homes. And so what is the trade-off of actually having those and not destroying the environment that they're in versus a few unfortunate casualties? It sounds very callous and it sounds horrible, but there isn't a perfect solution. I think we need to reflect on what is perfect. Is it plausible, or is it better to go down a different path?
Yeah. Great questions to support our listeners to reflect upon and not to get caught up in the impacts that perhaps detract from a much better, holistic, greater outcome.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan. Again, appreciate your time with us. And for those who are interested in Alan's work and would like to connect with him, you will see his social media handles or email with this link. So encourage you to reach out to Alan, as I know he's making a beautiful and powerful impact in the world. So thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Janine. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And a great pleasure for me. By the way, for those who are still here, ORSC, I didn't explain what that was, but it's about working with teams, coaching and working with teams. So for anyone who's still listening, thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website, www.empower-world.com, and on our social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.